Hello and welcome to another episode of The Art of Action. Today I'm very honored to be joined by a special guest, Mr. Steven Seagal. Steven, how are you?
Good, brother. Very good. So happy to see you and see you again, actually, and nice to be on your show.
You are undoubtedly one of the most recognizable martial arts action stars on the face of the planet. In the early 90s, your 5-film run with Nico, Hard to Kill, Marked for Death, Out for Justice, and Under Siege. Those 5 movies saw you soar to the top of Hollywood and become one of the biggest action stars we've ever known. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks again, Steven.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
So what we normally do is I'll ask my guests what their martial arts background is, but I know that your martial arts background is absolutely huge. But what I'd really love to know is how you became the first white man to teach Aikido and have his own dojo in Japan. Am I right in thinking that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not white, but
Okay.
I'm
Non-Japanese.
yeah. My mother was American Indian, and my father is a Russian Mongol, so I'm Asian. I don't know what the hell I am, but am I allowed to cuss on this show, or we
I'll
need
cut it out, but you can. I'll bleep it.
Okay. Yeah.
Until you start sticking knives in people's heads, of course, I will show that.
Okay. So I'll try to make this briefer than brief. I don't think my martial arts background is as vast as you do, but anyway. The beginning is I was with my father in Michigan. I was born in Michigan, right outside of Detroit. And my father was a football coach, and at the halftime of a football game, do you even know what that is, a halftime? Probably not, because you're British.
Yeah.
No, you do know what it is.
It's the same in England, soccer.
Okay, great. So at a halftime, they showed this little old man. He set these mats out there, and he started beating up on and throwing people around and throwing them around like pieces of paper. And I went crazy. I said, my father, I said, Daddy, that's what I was born to do. I was probably about 5 years old at that time. And back in the 50s and the early 60s, there were not a lot of dojos. Let me tell you, I don't care who tells you what. In America, there are very few dojos in the 50s at all, and the early 60s. And then, by the end of the 60s, they started to be more and more, particularly GIs that had studied abroad and came back. There was a gentleman by the name of Sakamoto Sensei. I call him Sensei because he became my sensei. And he was a cook there. He didn't have a dojo, didn't have anything else. And he saw me moving very fast with these dishes and stuff like that. He made some remark. And of course, me already being, completely obsessed with the martial arts, I said, hey, do you know karate? I said, where are you from? And he said, I'm from Japan. He said, I'm from Okinawa. I said, do you know karate? And he said, yes, I do. Why do you ask? And I said, this is something I want to devote my life to. And this, he didn't really say anything more. He just watched me for a few weeks. And then, I once asked him, I said, is there any way you would teach me karate? And he said, yeah, I'll let you come to my home on, every Thursday night and Saturday afternoon, and you can come and I'll give you some basics. And when I went there, he took me out in the garden and he said, this is a makiwara. This is how I want to teach you to punch. And I said, he said, all these other guys in here that you see doing katas and fighting with each other, you're not going to do any of that for at least a year. You're going to spend at least a year on the makiwara, just learning how to punch. And he said, in a lot of the traditional karate, you'll see people turn their hand over. He said, we're not going to do that much here. We're going to punch straight. And you're going to hit these two knuckles. And that's the first punch you're going to learn. And you're going to try it on the right side for a while, and then the left side and the right side. And then you're going to try right and left. And you're going to do this until I think your fist is landing on the makiwara nicely. And so that was my first karate teacher.
How old were you then, Stephen? Sorry, how old were you then?
Probably 14, something like that. There was a gentleman by the name of Isaka Kyoshi who was teaching Aikido. He was born in Kyushu and raised in Hawaii. And he became probably almost the closest teacher I ever had.
Yeah.
And I mixed karate and Aikido. And Aiki Jiu-Jitsu, and I can remember one of these guys telling me, he said, you're studying Aikido in a pure form from Isaka Kyoshi, but also the purest form is the pre-war Aikido, because after the Japanese lost the war, Ueshiba Morihei, the founder of Aikido, decided that he has to take out all the lethal punches, kicks, chokes, striking, and anatomical weak points that would be attacked, and that Aikido would be more of a martial art that people could do without getting hurt, and that he would remove all shiai, how do you say, fighting.
Mike's.
Right. No, fighting. You were not allowed to do these competition fighting.
Okay.
And so I got this pre-war Aikido kind of buried in my head. Then went to Japan when I didn't really graduate from high school, but I took a test to graduate early, and went to Japan, and my father kind of helped me. I sold all my musical instruments, and I went to Japan when I was probably 16, 15, 16. And this was late 60s, early 70s, and started studying mostly Aikido. And then from Aikido, I started going into Jiu-Jitsu and sword. And I studied a lot of sword. Okay. And the sword teachers were mostly outside of Tokyo, and they were very secretive. And a lot of them were Bosan, Zen Bosan, like Zen monks and Zen masters. Oh, yeah. So I was studying at that time Jiu-Jitsu, Aikido, and Jiu-Jitsu. And I kind of stopped training karate for a while. And I would go around Tokyo and search out different masters to train with, different dojos to study with, train with other guys, fight with other guys. And then I met Masoyama. You know who that is because you're a karate guy. And I got to be very good friends with him and started training with some of his guys. I liked him a lot because he was Korean, and he knew what it was like to be prejudiced against. And he kind of, told everybody in the beginning, that maybe he's Japanese, and he changed his name and so forth and so on. But
really,
yeah, he's Korean, and I guess back in the olden days, a lot of people didn't know that, because I will tell you, back in the day, and I'm going to say a lot of things that are maybe politically incorrect, but I just want you to get the flavor of what really happened. I went to many places in Japan where no one had ever seen a non-Japanese. They would look at me, they'd look me up and down, go, to the equivalent in English, holy shit, what is that? They'd never seen a foreigner.
Because you're a big guy as well, aren't you? So you're tall.
Right. And so I went to many places where they just said, we're sorry, no gaijin allowed. So it's not just for American Black people that they experienced this during those times, but I think there are other countries that are, have their own sort of ethnocentric rules and regulations and lives and cultural mores. And so I had tried to enter a lot of places where they said, no gaijin allowed.
It sounds like you're on a quest to just become the best martial artist that you could possibly be, and trying to seek out the best possible trainers that you could possibly find in a foreign land.
That is exactly what I was doing. And when I got older in Japan, I actually went into Hong Kong to study some Kung Fu there, and then went into Taiwan to study some Tai Chi there. So I did that kind of thing. I was always going around trying to find the greatest master.
When was this then?
That's probably around 1978, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
These are all your students.
Right.
So, like in America in the 60s, was Aikido something very new, not people knew about? Was it more karate and judo that people knew about?
Nobody knew about Aikido at this time. Nobody.
Yeah. This is the Joe, is it?
Yeah.
Aikido, or being one with the universe, as Steve says, produces some unbelievable results. We don't.
That's very impressive there. It's pretty full contact, isn't it?
Yeah, if you don't know what you're doing, you'll break your neck. If you don't break it from the strike, you'll break it when you hit the ground.
So it's called an uki, is it? The person that's taking the throws?
Right.
Am I right?
Right.
You have to know how to fall specifically, otherwise you're going to have your wrist broken, your arm broke, or
Your neck broken.
yeah. Oh, it's fantastic stuff. Still training now, obviously. It's your life. You are a lifelong martial artist.
I hit the makiwara every day. Every day.
You started with the makiwara and you will finish with the makiwara.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're saying you were being trained to punch almost like a Wing Chun sort of punch and not turn them
A
up?
little different, because what Sakamoto Sensei said is, when you punch, you don't punch. This is more Wing Chun, yeah, but he would turn it down. So when you hit, it's a little bit turned down. He's very eclectic, kind of an Okinawa guy. This guy, he didn't believe in rank. He didn't give a shit about rank. I asked him about that once. He said, well, what's that gonna buy you? What's that gonna get you? He said, either you learn karate or you don't. And he said, and if you learn karate, the first thing you will learn is respect and humility and how to help others and make the world a better place. And then when you really have power, you'll be able to defend yourself and your family and innocent people. And when you fight, you will fight to destroy. We don't teach how to give somebody a bloody nose. He said, in my style, we fight to end it. And if they die, that's fine. And that was the way I was taught.
And that's the way going back to the samurai, I suppose.
Yeah, and that's why I had such a hard time in America with just the way certain people act sometimes, because that's what I was really used to. That's the way I was raised.
I would love for you to tell the audience the story of how you got into Hollywood and how that whole thing came about. Did you ever have dreams as a kid to get into the movies, or was it something that came out?
My dream, you hit the nail on the head, Scott, because you got it. My dream was to be one of the best martial artists in the world. That was my dream.
Certainly you can see that.
In 1985, I came back to America. That's one date that I remember. And I came back to America and I wanted to teach in America for a while. I had been in Japan for a long, long time, 18 years, something like that. I don't know. And I didn't want to go back and forth anymore. I wanted to sit down and make a really good dojo in America. And I can remember there was a gentleman by the name of Michael Ovitz who came to the dojo. And I found that this tremendously powerful guy at that time, very powerful guy in Hollywood. And he said, hey, man, I want to introduce you to Terry Semel, who is the head of Warner Brothers Motion Pictures. And they'd like to make a movie with you. And I said, what kind of movie? And he said, well, your martial arts are astounding. Nobody does what you do.
You were teaching Michael Ovitz, right?
After that, yeah, he ended up asking me to teach him. And so I said, okay, I'll go to meet Terry Semel at Warner Brothers. And he said, and we'd like you to do just a little secret private demo back, with all of the producers and executives and, just a secret little demonstration. I said, okay. And like I said to you before, I was a very wrathful guy back then. The technique was not nice. You had to be, a really nasty black belt to, get in and do that stuff with me. So I put on that kind of a demo, and the people that were women there too, they were like gasping. So Terry Seagal asked me to take a meeting with him. I sat down with him. He said, I'm giving you 4 scripts. Pick one of them, and we'll make a movie with you. I said, just like that? And he said, yeah, just like that. People really in America didn't know anything about Aikido. Most of them have never heard of it or never seen it. Yeah. And when I did that, I put in some of the pre-war jiu-jitsu, the breaking the elbow, snapping the arm, choking people to death, stuff like that. That's really not a part of modern Aikido the way Sensei, kind of left it. But yeah, I put all that pre-war jiu-jitsu stuff in there because that's what I loved.
The public, anyone who did know something about Aikido, they may have considered it a little bit flowery and a little bit gentle and a little bit, you know what I mean? But when you burst onto the scene with Above the Law, it was so brutal. It was so violent and so visceral. But perfect technique, obviously, but you hitting these guys with such force. And what I also really loved about it was there'd always be people smashing over tables, going into wardrobes, glass smashing. That is extremely cinematic. So I want to know, did the bone breaking, obviously you've said the bone breaking came from you, and also the smashing through the furniture, is that something that just is part and parcel of a stuntman being thrown around? They want to smash through stuff.
Right. I know that in the beginning, Terry Seagal said, okay, we're going to make you the next great Kung Fu star. And I said, Terry, there's been 5,000 Kung Fu movies. I don't want to make a Kung Fu movie. I want to show the world Aikido, and they've never seen it. And after that, it became very famous around the world, Aikido. And,
well, I was talking to a friend of mine, and he is a senior in Aikido in the UK. He's a great guy, and he told me that he was so inspired. He was a judoka when he saw Nico, and he was so inspired by seeing you in that movie that he then dedicated his life to Aikido. He was massively inspired by you, as many of us were. Never seen anything like it. It changed action cinema forever. You'd never seen anything like it. When you can come with something brand new like you did, it is huge.
Thank you. Well, I didn't really do anything to change cinema as much as I wanted to really show the real original pre-war Aikido Jiu-Jitsu. I wanted to show that,
Hey, this guy's got to work too, Get down, asshole.
The setting of the movie as well, and all of your movies, especially in the beginning, were very realistic. Acting's very realistic. Nothing's glorified. It's all just very real.
These guys are all high-level black belts, And one of them is one of Oshima Sensei's highest karate black belts. That guy right there, Tom Uzila, is a fantastic karateka.
Yeah. So I was going to say, because you couldn't just get normal stunt guys coming in and expecting them to be able to react to this in a safe manner, right? They're just
no way.
So did you always have, in every movie you've done, are you specifically choosing stunt guys, or?
Yeah, I had to, with a lot of the fancy Aikido. See, there's ukenagashi and this hammer fist on the face and the elbow underneath the chin. You don't see that technique very often. And ukenagashi is also what we call bongsao in Wing Chun. So I'm just mixing it up, Yeah. This kid right here is one of my black belts from Japan, Craig Dunn.
So he's one of your students, this guy?
Oh, yeah, he was with me in Japan and with me for a long time.
Okay, yeah, that's what I wanted to know, you see, because I was thinking, you can't just be doing this to guys that aren't going to know how to react.
They'll get hurt.
With a broken wrist or elbow.
Yeah. Broken wrist and elbow you can heal, but the broken neck is what you really worry about.
And how successful was Above the Law?
Above the Law was really very successful, tremendously successful.
Because obviously I was a kid, I saw it on VHS, and was blown away, and then before I knew it, Hard to kill.
Well, you know, it's only 4 of you guys, and you only have 1 shot left in here, you know?
Hard to Kill came out, and that was a big success at the theaters as well, right?
Probably. I think Marked for Death was even bigger.
Well, it seemed to me that with Marked for Death, the violence was amped up even more.
Yeah, it was.
That's what always impressed me about your movies. There's something very cinematic about violence, and like these guys just smashing through things all the time, and the arm breaks and everything. It's just very cinematic.
Well, thank you.
Now, normally I would ask, were you there to tell people where to put the cameras, and did you have a hand in that? But I'm looking at it thinking, the Aikido is just so dynamic from any angle. I think it just looks good from any angle as long as you see most of the technique, right?
When I first did Above the Law, I had this kind of cowboy stunt coordinator that they'd hired, and he didn't really understand any of this stuff at all. His name was Mickey Gilbert. He could do, horses and cars probably really well. But I ended up seeing right away that I needed to show this stuff the way I wanted. And so I ended up sort of studying, and I got a couple of lessons from some people that I thought really understood. And then I started placing cameras, and I just did really basic things. I'd usually take a 75 and a 50, and I'd do 75 in a 2T and my 50 to try to catch, cowboy stuff. And then, really wide, I would just back up and try to do master with everything wide. So really basic. I mean, I heard this gentleman, Chad, the other day doing a interview with you, and I was very impressed with his knowledge and his success. The way I make movies are completely different. I just never wanted to, make everybody memorize a move 4,000 times, and wanted to make it a little bit more wild and more chancy and visceral and confused, and you know what I mean? And so...
So how would it work, working with you then? If I'm a stunt guy, we're coming in to do a fight with Steven Seagal, are you gonna choreograph the moves that you want to do?
Right, I would do that.
Rehearsing, or are you working with your own team who are going
working with my own guys?
Right.
And like I said, I wouldn't really work them the way Chad seemed to, which is probably more intelligent and more professional. I'd work them a little bit different, and because inevitably everybody makes mistakes, and I'd tell them to come with a fucking right cross, and they'd come, with a left hook or something. And so I would always like that because it made it more crazy and more real.
Is it your idea to smash people into things, or is that the stunt coordinator wanting to?
Well, that's certainly my idea, yeah.
Yeah. So things can change in the moment. Are we saying it's going to be the stunt guy knows that he's going to come in with a certain technique, and you may do one or the other? It's one of your guys, so they know how to fall regardless of what the technique is.
Right.
Okay, I understand. Well, if we ever work together, Steven, can you please let me know what's coming?
Come get some.
Had you took acting lessons before you did your first movie?
Are you kidding me?
Have you never took acting lessons?
No.
You've always been very believable with your performances. Very understated, no overacting, just very believable, especially in the, New York cop sort of setting, and which Out for Justice has. What's
cool about that one bar scene is I brought my old friend Danny Nosanto, whom I didn't mention, but James Coburn was one of my very close friends back in the day, and he was very close friend and student of Bruce Lee and Danny Nosanto. And so I was always up at James Coburn's home and see everybody up there, and became close with Danny Nosanto, and I got him to be in the scene with me.
Sticks, yeah. Whose idea was it to put the snooker ball inside the sock?
That was my idea. It's a bar rag, yeah. And that would hurt, Scott. That would hurt bad.
Well, it definitely hurt this guy, knocked his teeth out. But all the guys around you, they're all, very believable character actors that pretty much do good performances. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I thought everybody in this movie was very, very good. Some great actors in this movie. Here's Danny.
Yeah.
Now, watch this, Scott. People think I'm standing up for this. I'm sitting down. Did you know that?
I think you're on one knee, right?
Yeah, I'm on my knees there.
Yeah.
A lot of people think I'm standing.
I know, because the next guy that comes in, you throw him while you're knelt down, I think.
Yeah.
If I remember rightly.
Let me get that a little Aikijitsu in there.
Yeah. There you go, you're on your knees there.
Still on my knees, still on my knees, still on my knees.
And this, what's this guy's name again? He's a great actor. It seems like he's doing most of this on his own.
Well, when people are coming at you fast and hard enough, you just have to move out of the way.
Yeah. Well, he's putting in a committed performance, isn't he?
Yeah, he's off the chain, this guy.
Well, he's a great actor, and he definitely suited this part.
Yeah.
But look at that, it's just so impressive. Bang. I love it, especially when the frying pan comes out.
I don't get to see those anymore.
Oh, you should watch them. I do. It's all on YouTube.
I'll take that weapon. Quietly.
Tommy Lee Jones is a real wonderful actor. The truth has been.
He is. That was probably the first time I saw him. And obviously, he went on to be one of the greats. I don't think people had seen knife fighting like that before you did it in Under Siege. Even if you didn't necessarily know what was happening, there was something about it. This seems more real.
I ran into Danny at Brendan Lee's funeral, and first thing Danny did was come up and give me a big hug and say, "Man, I love that knife fight you did at Under Siege."
Even if you don't necessarily know much about knife fighting, and I wouldn't have done when I watched this, it was you knew you were seeing something that rang true.
Tommy's also quite physical back then. I don't know. He's a little older now, but he was pretty physical back then, which helped me a lot.
Yeah.
But I'm doubling him with one of my black belts too,
Okay. Vicious ending. Bang. And then immediately with the one line. Brilliant. Brilliant stuff.
Well, I used to have this kind of personality where I always wanted to sort of test myself and see what I could accomplish with what I had learned. And I felt that I learned a lot about movie making, and I kind of wanted to test myself and see if I understood what I thought I did. And that's why I asked them if I could direct another major environmental movie.
And you say you've got Native American blood in you.
Right.
So
my mother was a Mohawk. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, very close. In your movies, there's always a bar fight.
Well, I like bar fights, but I also, forgive me for saying this, think that one of the best places to do a really great fight, and I haven't done it yet. I mean, I've done fights in the bathroom, but I think if you wanted to make one of the greatest fights in the world, the bathroom is the place to do it.
Really?
I just haven't done that yet, yeah.
How so?
All these porcelain sinks and metal, faucets and porcelain toilets and stalls and
Tom
mirrors.
Cruise did a good one in Mission Impossible, and
Yes,
there's a nice
yes.
one in Casino Royale as well. Very
Exactly. It's a great place to do a great fight.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Out of all the fights that you've done, and there's so many, Do you have a favorite or?
I think Attrition is my favorite for sure. The fight that's in the herbal shop, that's my favorite.
So very Hong Kong flair to these fights in these movies. Obviously seeing more of a Kung Fu style from you now. We're seeing your Kung Fu.
Right.
I love the costume, especially when you've got the hat on as well.
Thank you.
In Hong Kong especially, 22 frames will be used on a regular basis. Now, I have to say, I've used it, the films that I've done as Boyka, Undisputed. The Isaac Florentine films that I've made, that director, he likes to shoot at 22. And you know, it's a filmmaking decision. You can either use it or you cannot, but you've never used 22 frames.
No, never. I mean, listen, my action is never sped up, ever.
Yeah.
It's always my speed. In fact, sometimes I'll go a little bit slower than my fast speed or top speed, just so it's easier for the eye to see or comprehend. But, you know, and this is not saying anything negative about anybody, because you just sort of, you know, put it in perspective. But I mean, Jackie Chan, Donnie Yen, Jet Li, I mean, all those guys speed up their action. Not always, but a lot.
Yes, they absolutely do. And I've done it, and I've done films where I haven't done it, and I actually prefer to not do it. But when I went to Hong Kong, which is where I started,
that's their thing. That's their thing.
That's their thing. And I would watch their movies, and I would think, oh, I've got to go as fast as they do. But they would say, no, slow down.
Yeah.
Because it'll look too fast.
Exactly. And then, like, if you even look at Attrition, this last movie that I did, my stuff is all just normal speed. And if you look at Feng Sui Wan, he's speeding all his stuff up. All the other guys are speeding their stuff up.
Right, so this is not sped up here.
Not at all. And we start out with some bong sao, you know, and boom.
Yeah.
But that's not sped up. None of that.
Well, that is legitimately fast.
Yeah.
And I would have thought it was sped up. Because that is very quick, Steven, yeah.
Plenty of witnesses, yeah.
Yeah. And this is great because you're bringing out all the Kung Fu in this movie.
Yeah.
If people haven't seen Attrition, they should check it out, right?
I think so. I think, you know, there's a lot of cool fighting stuff in here. These are all of Donnie Yen's best guys. He was kind enough to lend me all of his guys.
Yeah.
And they're good. They are good, you know.
Well, you know, it's the art of filmmaking, isn't it? Now, recently, I was watching Bruce Lee's Way of the Dragon, and there is a section where he is fighting Bob Wall, and I'm pretty sure that was at 22 frames, and everyone would always say Bruce Lee never did 22 frames, but
nowadays we're more sophisticated. But if you look at some of that stuff, you know, back in the day, some of it was amazing. For example, you know, Bruce's sidekick, Yokogiri, was much better than mine ever was or ever will be. Mashigiri also really good. But, I mean, those, to me, those were the two things that set him apart from everybody. That sidekick was spectacular. Nobody could do it like that.
Still to this day, it's...
yes, those two things,
yeah,
magnificent.
Well, in terms of film fighting, I mean, there's an evolution there, and he is changing things as he was shooting stuff. He was inventing new stuff, as far as I understand it, in terms of how to capture the action. And obviously, it's dated in some ways, but in other ways, it still stands out.
I mean, what I liked about Bruce Lee is always thinking and always practicing and always trying something new. You know, because, for example, when I told you, you know, Danny Inosanto taught him nunchaku and the Eskrima and Kali sticks and stuff like this. It's like Bruce would borrow techniques from other arts and make them a part of his art. And he was kind of, I don't want to say the first guy to do that, but he did it like really the best in the sense that he spread that kind of, new concept of mixed martial arts in his own way throughout the world. He was one of the first to do that, certainly on film. One of the things that made me really want Fancy-Wan was when I saw the fight scene of him and Donnie Yen, where he first comes into Donnie Yen's home as Ip Man.
Yeah.
Remember that scene and the little kid riding around the bicycle? That's a great scene, because what I hate is when two guys just square off in the middle of a warehouse or something. I love it when they're in something where there's so many artistic and beautiful and delicate things, sort of crafting the shape and the feel and the mood of the scene, and so many, fragile and expensive things to break and stuff like that. And so, and then putting the child in there, this fragile child. And I thought Louis Fancy-Wan was wonderful in that. Of course, Donnie was wonderful.
The Chinese movies are so beautifully shot as well, but they have the time. They have the time to do it.
Yeah, and they realize how much time they need to spend to do stuff like this. Most of the greatest fight scenes you see, in my opinion, are Yimou Ping, but also Sammo Hung is wonderful at choreographing these kind of real, visceral fight scenes.
I completely agree. Sammo Hung and Yimou Ping are the top two.
They really are.
Yeah, I mean,
even though I love the Hong Kong fight scenes, and just adore and worship them, I really never liked the wire work. And I remember on Exit Wounds, they asked me to do wire work, and I, of course, really didn't want to. And, the golden rule, and the Chinese, of course, know this, with wire is you got to have the wire team on the same level as the actor. And you've got to have them on the same level where they can have a direct line of sight.
Surprised you didn't say I'm not getting on that wire.
Yeah, well, I mean, I did say I really don't want to do it because I don't think it's, realistic. And then,
but that was all the rage at that point, wasn't it? Early 2000s, people had gone wire foo crazy because of the Matrix.
Right. And so I said, no, and finally agreed to do it. And then they had put the wire team around the corner so they couldn't see me, and up 2 stories above me, which are the 2 golden rules you can't break. And sure enough, they dropped me and broke my leg. And,
oh, you broke your leg?
Yeah, they f***ed me up.
Oh, no.
I got really hurt on that deal. And it was just a rough shoot.
I've had a few injuries because it's hard to do it all day, isn't it? And stay
My
warm.
brother, anyone who's done a lot of martial arts, if they haven't had injuries, they ain't doing the martial arts for long.
Yeah. Okay, I guess I'm doing something right then, because I've had a few.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you talk about being in the corner for some of these famous UFC guys like Anderson Silva and Lyoto Machida?
Yeah, I've gotten a card from Anderson Silva out of nowhere saying, hey, teach me some of your lethal shit. And I knew his manager, George. I called George. I said, what is this? He said, yeah, man, everybody's a huge fan. We really love to learn from you. And, I got together with these guys and started working with Lyoto and Anderson primarily. And the first thing I wanted to teach them is a kind of a unique kick. It's a front kick, but it was different. And I told them both, this is what I want you to do in your upcoming championship fights. And I worked them on it every day. And I filmed it just for those people who are saying Steven Seagal didn't teach them the kick. Of course, Lyoto Machida is a black belt. I know his father very well also, is a similar background of mine. And, of course, they both knew how to do their front kick. I tried to teach them to do something a little bit different, and I told them use it, and they both, Leo Machida knocked out Randy Couture, and
He did the Karate Kid kick. He did put a little jump on it.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I taught him to do. And then, Anderson Silva knocked out Vito Belfort. This is exactly what I was working with them on constantly. And then there's all those people that just say, oh, Steven Seagal, man, he didn't teach them. So, okay, I didn't teach him. They made it up, or it's just coincidence. Everybody has a sort of a different attitude on the martial arts. For me, martial arts should be something to teach you humility, real humility, respect for yourself, respect for everyone out there, and the courage to be able to help others, even when you don't think you have the ability to help them, That's what it should be about. But it's also a martial art. And what that means to me is you don't ever use it unless you have to. But if you have to, like I said, my teachers from the time I was very, very young would say the same thing. If you can't kill with one punch, you don't know how to punch yet. And our idea of getting into a fight with the martial arts is only when you have to, but is to get it over with immediately, because you're defending your life or the life of your wife or your children or some other innocent person. You cannot afford to let it go on for a lot of reasons. And one is, the longer it goes on, the more chance you have of getting hurt. And the other thing is, the more chance you have of someone else coming.
It's an insurance policy, right? You don't want to have to use it, but if you need to use it, it's best to know how to use it.
And get it over with quickly at all cost.
Yeah. And do you have any view on the whole MMA thing that's come up, and it's more of a sport, and maybe we've lost a bit of the respect that you would have in the traditional martial arts? It seems to have been filtered out a little bit. You
have to understand it's a different animal. It is, to me, a sport network. And probably, even though I don't know this for sure, I'm good friends with Dana White, and I've never asked him this. I suppose I could, but it's very possible that people badmouth each other and trash talk each other for more hype to get more people to watch the fight. But in the real world of Bushido and the real world of the martial arts, we don't talk like that. We don't say, I'm going to do this to you, I'm going to do that to you, you're a piece of shit, you're an asshole, your wife is this. We don't ever talk like that about anyone. We just say, let's let the fight begin, and the outcome of the fight will be the judge of, who we are and what we are. Which is pretty much exactly what Lyoto Machida says. So yeah, there you go. Well, like I said, he was raised well. I love him like my little brother, and his father's also a dear friend of mine, cut from the same cloth I am. Brilliant stuff. Is there anything that you haven't done yet? A movie that you'd love to make that you haven't been able to make yet? I hope someday I can make a great Western. Oh yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah. Yeah, we all want to do a Western. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Steven, it's been a career spanning 30 years. We've enjoyed it. We've seen many of your movies. You've done some great films, and hopefully you will continue to do so. Steven Seagal, thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you, brother. Thank you so much.